Welcome back to ProSex Studios. I'm Brian Downs, and on this channel I examine the sexual subtext in popular films and television shows. Are they presenting a positive or negative message about sexuality? In this episode we're going to be discussing Russian Doll Season 1, the popular Netflix series. I'm only going to be doing it once, so please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Our protagonist, the Russian doll herself, is an American New Yorker, Nadia Volkov, played by the electric Natasha Lyonne. She's wonderful. This show is so viciously anti-sex that it borders on the paranoid. Have I seen anything as repugnantly anti-sex as Russian Doll Season 1? No. The show opens with Nadia attending her own 36th birthday party. It's very Manhattan, very hip, very in need of drugs to seem like fun. Nadia decides she'd like to have sex, so she approaches Mike, a professional academic, flirts with him in a caustic New York way, embraces him, kisses him, and directs his hand into her pants. They go back to her place and apparently have sex. We don't see it. The show just cuts to Nadia and Mike chatting in her place as Mike puts his suit jacket back on. She's on the couch. Mike sits in a chair opposite and says, "Why don't you come over here and sit on my face right now?" She replies, "I would, but I just called you an Uber." Less than a minute of screen time later, Nadia goes out for cigarettes, sees her missing cat, Oatmeal, sitting under some bushes, and is killed by a taxi cab. Long zoom on her dead eyes and lacerated face. This is negative meme number 1, the wanting disaster. I've identified 12 negative memes that are recycled endlessly in popular culture and fiction, and this is the first one. Wanting sex, having sex, desiring sex, sometimes just talking about sex leads to something terrible. Something terrible happens quickly after. A lot of the time there's a direct causal relationship. You tried to have sex and something horrible happened. You went into the woods with the girl and got chopped up by the maniac. Sometimes it's not a direct causal relationship, but the disaster follows swiftly nonetheless. Nadia chose to have sex with Mike, a consenting adult, and then she was smashed to death by a yellow sedan. Which resets her back in the vagina-themed bathroom in her friend Maxine's apartment where she started this episode at her birthday party. Rather disoriented and perplexed, she lives through a different version of the party. She does not go home with Mike. Instead, she winds up in a conversation with her ex, John Reyes. She's terrible to him, but this seems to be her attitude with most people. She winds up in the park looking for her cat, then she falls in the river and drowns. Back to the bathroom. And the party. She pops out of the bathroom and announces, "The universe is trying to fuck with me, and I refuse to engage. Do you hear me? I won't do it." The universe is not interested in your consent, Volkov. And this is Russian Doll. Nadia Volkov dies and dies and dies again, only to find herself back in the genital restroom for another go. In between her terminations, she tries to figure out what the hell is going on. Soon enough, she finds herself plummeting to her death in a faulty elevator. And this is where she meets Alan. He's unperturbed by the drop because, as he tells her, "It doesn't matter. I die all the time." They only meet for a few free-fall seconds in this first encounter, but Nadia is determined to find him in future resets. We get to know Alan in episode 4, Alan's routine. He's a pleasant, unremarkable guy. He's been with his girlfriend Beatrice for 9 years. They had planned a vacation together, but because we are meeting Alan several resets into his experience, he already knows that he won't be leaving for vacation this morning. Beatrice is going to admit to Alan that she has been secretly having sex with Mike, and then dump him. This, of course, short-circuits Alan's plan to propose marriage to her. This is the same Mike whom Nadia had sex with in episode 1. Mike is Russian Doll's Emperor Palpatine. Mike is the devil, sent by the universe to torment our heroes, because Mike has sex with adults who want to have sex with him. This is the negative meme. It's villains who sex. The villains in movies like sex, pursue sex, are sexy, have sex, and aren't ashamed of it. In fact, you can often identify who the villain is by their sexual behavior. Mike is literally the villain because he has sex. And what is Beatrice's crime against Alan? She had sex. It's villains who sex, and like Mike, Beatrice is a villain because she had sex. In one of his many confrontations with many different incarnations of Mike, Alan demands, "Why you? B. She chose you, and you don't love her. You're not faithful. You never get punished. So why you? Mike is evil because he has sex with consenting adults, and Alan clearly expects him to suffer for that. You never get punished. Interestingly, Alan never musters this kind of fury at Beatrice, and it was Beatrice who broke a promise to Alan by having sex with Mike. Mike never promised Alan he wouldn't have sex with Beatrice. And notice this. We never see one moment of eroticism between Alan and Beatrice, not even in the flashback. Their sexual relationship is all in the backstory, and all that is left is suffering and bitterness. That again is the wanting disaster. Alan and Beatrice had sex, we assume. He says she is his girlfriend. They never mention it, they never talk about it. Neither of them ever reference their sex life, neither does any other character. But they had sex, and that put them in this terrible place. It's also the negative meme celebrating celibate marriage. Alan's backstory relationship with Beatrice is apparently sexless, and he was about to propose making it official in a church. The audience is meant to sympathize with Alan's valuing their relationship that highly. What ruins their sexless relationship? Beatrice has sex. Movies and television shows often present sexless relationships as admirable. Married couples rarely display eroticism, and if they do, it's usually the wanting disaster. It prefigures some kind of catastrophe or doom. We are supposed to say hooray for sexual relationships like marriages or long-term relationships that have no sex in them. It's also in Alan's routine that the show starts dialing up the fact that objects are disappearing out of this reset universe. The engagement ring for Beatrice is gone. Alan's fish no longer appears. Not only are our heroes doomed to suffer painful demise and terrifying death again and again, they also get to watch their hell evaporating. Even when Nadia is trying to repair a past offense to John by keeping an appointment to meet him and his daughter for breakfast, she keeps getting killed. It's as if the universe is trying to prevent her from righting past wrongs or making any progress. This isn't a lesson. It's cruelty beyond Jigsaw's grandest ambitions. Nadia even wonders if each of the resets is its own universe which carries on after their deaths. The other people in that elevator died too. Nadia has a close relationship with her adoptive mother, Ruth. In one of Nadia's resets, Ruth mistakes her for a burglar and shoots her to death. Does that Ruth spend the rest of her life tormented by that accident? Probably. Because for the god of Russian Doll, there is no end to suffering. A lot of people watched this show and found it inspiring or exciting or thrilling, something about second chances and the ability to reevaluate what you're doing in your life. I find it horrifying. God is cruel. In episode 6, Reflection, Nadia and Alan are stymied for answers and get drunk together. Nadia admits to Alan that she had sex with Palpatine Mike. This upsets Alan, who declares, "I can fuck you better than Mike." Seconds later, they're in her apartment. It's an angry, inebriated act of Congress. We don't see it, of course. We see them embracing for a few seconds. Then, post-sex, Alan is passed out on the bed and Nadia steals his shoes. She did it to give them to a homeless man named Horace, which will prevent him from freezing to death on the street in this reset. Nadia could have left a note. She could have discussed this with Alan. She could have found a pair of shoes somewhere else. She could have taken some other approach to solving this problem with this man who's going to freeze to death. What she does is steal Alan's shoes. Alan, shoeless, confused, and waking up alone at Nadia's apartment, goes on a cleaning spree and brings out some photos of Nadia's mother that he found under her bed. Nadia returns and throws him out in a fury. She preferred those photos to be in hiding. This would end their relationship completely, but they are, in a very real sense, the only people in the world for one another, so they reconcile. But this is, again, the wanting disaster. These two people had sex, two consenting adults. Bam. In the next scene they're in together, there's a terrible rupture in their relationship, a screaming confrontation. Apparently, the end of things between them, except they have no choice but to reconcile. And in the first few minutes of episode 7, The Way Out, they realize something. In the last night of their normal lives, before the first reset, they encountered each other. Alan was reeling around a deli, blackout drunk in an attempt to drown his pain about Beatrice, and Nadia was in that deli with Mike, buying condoms. Nadia did not help that drunk stranger, and so Alan goes on to kill himself. Nadia goes on to have sex with Mike and then get hammered by a taxi cab. So they determine to go back to the deli and try to change the course of events. Are you following that the show presents Alan flinging himself off a roof in despair at the end of his relationship with Beatrice as equivalent to Nadia choosing to have sex with another consenting adult? Suicide and sex are the same thing. This is the negative meme, danger is sex. Sex is often presented as dangerous, as off-putting, as weird, as self-destructive, or conversely, danger is presented as sexy. It's all designed to make you feel anxious about sex. But Nadia and Alan are going to have a lot of trouble getting to the deli, because Nadia starts seeing an apparition of herself as a child, and each time she sees that apparition, she dies of a heart attack and resets, or spits up a lot of blood and broken glass and resets. The fractally cruel universe is now subjecting her to more frequent resets as more things and people vanish from her world and killing her with the mere sight of a phantom. So it seems that the deli is not the answer. Alan goes to Beatrice and tells her that really their relationship had been dead for a long time and it's for the best that it is over. Nadia confesses to her adoptive mother, Ruth, that she feels responsible for her biological mother's death. You see, Nadia's mother, Lenora, was mentally ill, and when Nadia was 8, she was, in effect, adopted by Ruth. Within a year, Lenora was dead, and Nadia has blamed herself ever since. She wanted a home that wasn't insane with Ruth, not Lenora's madhouse, and that's how she killed her mother. Ruth explains to Nadia that she should not feel guilty. She was a child, and the decision was made for her by Ruth and a social worker. Lenora didn't die of Nadia's disdain. She died of her lunacy. Apparently, literally, as the show never names any other cause of death, which I think is weak writing. I mean, how many times is it going to kill you to say, slit her wrists, accident with pills? I mean, can you not think up a way for someone to die? But a weight is lifted from little Nadia's soul. It was necessary for the universe to throw Alan through this Clive Barker puzzle box to convince him that he should give up his apparently sexless sexual relationship with Beatrice. There was no other way to get Nadia to have a conversation with her adoptive mother, who is incidentally a professional therapist, than squashing her, burning her, choking her to death. Russian Doll is telling us that Nadia is suffering this extraordinary Tartarus because she feels guilty about the death of her mother nearly 30 years ago when Nadia herself was a child. Apparently her guilt is her sin. But how does she express her guilt? By having a frequent and varied sex life. Your problem is sex. When does her first reset happen? Yes, after she briefly sees a drunk stranger in a deli, but more directly, after she has sex with Mike. So our heroes have these catharses and then die anyway. Russian Doll is trying to tell us that Nadia's life is emotionally barren, but it starts in and perpetually returns to her birthday party, which is full of people who seem very pleased to see her. Her adoptive mother is a guest at the party. Hell, even her ex-boyfriend John is happy to see her. Nadia doesn't lack emotional connection. That's not her problem. She spreads her legs. That's her problem. Alan and Nadia live in the same neighborhood, just around the corner from one another. If the universe wanted so desperately for them to be friends, couldn't it have just put them next to one another in the buffet line at a quinceañera? Why is it necessary to rearrange space and time to torture them in ways never imagined by the Geneva Convention? Because sex is bad. If there is any doubt remaining that Russian Doll is here to make you hate your genitals, that doubt chokes to death while plunging down an elevator shaft right before a huge air conditioner falls on it in the final episode, number 8, Ariadne. Somehow, Alan and Nadia find themselves back in their original timelines on the last night before their first reset. Nadia encounters the drunk and devastated Alan in a deli, but this Alan doesn't know her. Alan goes to the deli looking for Nadia, but the Nadia he finds does not know him. The Nadia he finds has only stopped by with Palpatine Mike for some rubbers and isn't the least bit interested in a stranger babbling at her about death and time travel. In fact, escalating horror. She's so uninterested that she leaves without purchasing condoms, shouting, "Raw dog!" as she heads off to bareback it with Mike. In the timeline where Nadia helps Alan, they go to his apartment. They lie down on his bed. The last time they were in bed together, and Alan was drunk, they had sex, which led to the wanting disaster. This time, they are both fully dressed, from their Adam's apples to their ankles. They barely touch. Instead, Nadia tells Alan a parable about how she is there to help him. Nadia dozes off. She wakes up a few minutes later to find Alan gone. She finds him up on the roof. He says to her, "You promise that if I don't jump, I'll be happy?" She replies, "I don't know, man. Absolutely not. But I can promise you that you will not be alone." So, evidently, their being friends is the universe's goal. In the timeline where Alan helps Nadia, he convinces her not to have sex with Palpatine Mike. In each of these timelines, Nadia doesn't have sex, neither with Alan nor with Mike. Alan doesn't have sex. Mike doesn't have sex, for that matter. And so the bloodthirsty universe is appeased, and Alan and Nadia march in a parade of homeless schizophrenics. Hooray! Nadia and Alan are now best friends, but they are not lovers. They tried that one time, and it was the worst thing that ever happened between them. This is the negative meme. Your friends are your family, and family doesn't sex. The people who are closest to you, the most important people in your life, the people who mean the most to you, are the people you don't have sex with. Hey, doesn't matter that you're a couple of good-looking people of approximately the same age who clearly have a lot of personal chemistry, enjoy one another's company, and have compatible sexual orientations. Nobody cares. You're not supposed to have sex with these people, and having sex with these people is dangerous. Your friends are your family, and family doesn't sex. Nadia gives up casual sex. Alan gives up his apparently sexless sexual relationship with Beatrice, and so they no longer deserve to be drowned, shot, or killed in a self-inflicted fall every 18 hours or so. Nadia is confronting her guilt about her mother's death, didn't stop it. Alan realizing that giving up Beatrice was for the best, didn't stop it. The two of them giving up sex stopped it. Now they are bonded together in celibacy. Russian Doll is frantically, pathologically anti-sex. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. I do this every week. Come back next week for another episode and take a look at my existing videos. I've done some on the MCU, on Netflix's Altered Carbon, and plenty of other properties. I appreciate your time. I'm Brian Downs.